Taking this motor out of this 99 Isuzu, which is a good motor. Bought it for $500. The transmission is supposed to be bad in it. However, I just found it had a really bad leak and low on fluid. I don't really know if it's any good, but at this point, I'm going to put the motor in this one over there. Same year. This one's going to go to the junkyard when I was done. So I did a real fast cut job on a lot of this stuff. I even cut a lot of the wires loose. One problem I ran into that I found out I was going to attempt to leave this entire intake on. However, there's a knock sensor underneath, so I had to cut the wire because I couldn't get to the plug-in. And then the other problem we have here is that down in there is where the actual thermostat is, and I don't really feel comfortable putting this thing back together without putting a new thermostat in it. So today I'm going to go ahead and take this off. One other drawback I found that there is actually some plug-ins back behind the firewall that are impossible to reach as well. So maybe I can get to those transmission bolts in the back if I take this top off and get to those plug-ins. And then additionally, this thing is pretty dirty on the inside. Right here. The tube is pretty clogged up on it, so I'm afraid that it's going to need to be cleaned out as well. So plenty of good reasons to go ahead and take this off today. Before I pull off this intake manifold and take everything loose, I got all this dirt in here. So I'm going to so I scraped it all down real good, and I'm going to vacuum it out because I don't want all that falling into the cylinders. There's a little exhaust piece that goes to the EGR valve. Needs to come off right here. I do happen to know there's bolts attached back there in the back as well. But we can get it loose and get to those. So give me a few and I'll take that off. On the back of the motor here, on the back of this fuel connection, there's actually an Allen head that's next to impossible to get to. You can't really get an Allen wrench in there very well. So I won't be putting the Allen head back, I'll put a regular bolt back, but I got extra clearance out of there and was able to open it, grab it with the vice grips and take it loose. And take it out of there just a second, but to get that extra clearance I took the transmission mounts loose, and I actually jacked up on it until I could raise it up, but I had to loosen the mounts first so that I could do that. Give me enough clearance to take care of it. Here's a good spray down with the oven cleaner. I'm gonna let it sit for like maybe an hour or two, and then I'll take the pressure washer to it. It's some pretty gummed up stuff. This tube here is what I really need to get cleaned out. That tube down there, I need to make sure I get it cleaned out. It's gonna take a few times of this to get all that gunk out of there. I'm getting close to pulling the motor on this Isuzu. This has probably been one of the worst motors I've ever tried to pull out. I had some real difficulties with getting the transmission off due to the bolts on the flywheel are really hard to access on this automatic transmission. You have to access them through the starter plate. Once you take the starter plate off, you can access them, but they're small, short bolts that are hard to get a hold of and are in there pretty tight on this one. So also I had a cross member that I couldn't get off. I got tired of messing with it, and since this is going to the junkyard, I just cut that cross member off up there. So you can see this piece there and that one there. I should have this out today if I can get those bolts off of the flywheel, and then I'll go a little slower on the next one. Try to tag everything and do it more systematically than this one. This is the running Isuzu Trooper. I'm going to go ahead and pull the motor out of it. This time I got to be a lot more methodical, try to document more of it. Started off by taking the skid pans off, spraying it down with degreaser so that I can get all this gunk out of the way, because it sure does make a mess when you're taking the motor out. So I'm going to spray this off real good, and then I'm going to start soaking the bolts and PB blaster, like the exhaust bolts and stuff that are hard to get out. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to start out with removing the battery. I'm going to take all the intake pieces off in the box here. Also going to take off the fan shroud and pull out the radiator after I drain it. These little clips down here are what you take off to pull this into two pieces so you can slide it out. And then once you get those clips off, you take off the main belt, and there's 4 bolts back behind this fan. You can pull it off. Have one bolt down there that's stripped. It's giving me a lot of trouble. So I decided to wait on it. I don't know if you can see it. Right there. So took off the throttle body. Got this vacuum hose here, which is all cracked. And then I have the 2 hoses here, which are from where the antifreeze coolant runs through. Take those off and put this throttle body away. I cut the bolt off with a sawzall down here that I couldn't get off. Kind of cut the cover, but I'm not planning on doing anything with this motor right now anyways. I got that off, pulled loose the back of the transmission, jacked it up so I could get enough room, and again I went with the vice grips on top and removed that bolt in the back. Problem is now I have that bolt right there is stuck and stripped. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that out. However, I did find this wrench online for taking the flywheel bolts off that I had so much problem with the last time, and it's a so on the back of this intake you get these 2 holes here, and those 2, they're size 10. They're impossible to get to, but if you take the left side one off first, you can kind of lift this entire unit a little bit and tweak it and twist it up, and you can reach back in and work on the other one. But that's an incredibly difficult problem. Horrible designing. I'm not going to put those back. See, one of the bolts fell down in there, but you got to be careful. You don't want them to fall down in the engine here. All right, so this sensor here, the knock sensor that's underneath, was a real pain. Removed it off the other one to make sure I didn't break it, but it's you actually squeeze it so those little tabs move out. So I'll give that a shot here, right here on this one that I haven't taken off yet. There, should be able to squeeze it and then pull up, and it comes right off like no issues. So that's all that's there. All right, this other little piece up here, I'm not sure what it is. Give me a little trouble as well. At this point I got most everything off. I got probably about 10 bolts, including the bolts that are holding on the transmission, a couple of the bolts on the transmission and a couple on the flywheel plate over at the bottom to the torque converter. And I was able to get these bolts off of the back pretty easily with this 17mm wrench. Once I jacked the motor up, it gave me access to get these top transmission bolts out. So I highly recommend that. I was actually got this for the flywheel bolts because they're so difficult. But it's a 0 offset 17mm. Still wasn't able to attempted to remove the power steering pump here, but I can't get it off due to a bracket bolt that's right here. It won't let it slide over the top of it. So the only option for that is to actually take it off, and I may actually try to take the pull the off with an air wrench here in a minute, see if it comes off, and then I can disconnect everything else on this side. I'm going to attempt to leave the air compressor in the vehicle, or sorry, the refrigeration compressor in the vehicle. Other than some stuck exhaust bolts, we're moving forward pretty well. I'm down to 1 bolt on the transmission here I need to take out. It's this corner in the back. Tilt the motor all the way forward, can't get to it. Tilt the motor all the way back, can get to it a little bit, but the air wrench can't seem to get it, so I'm gonna have to do it the way I did the last Isuzu. And I'm gonna take the center plate off,
I'm actually just going to lift it up enough to run a extension down through there all the way up to the front where that's at, and then I should be able to break it loose right here. Last time I moved this entire plate, but I think I can do it this time with just running the extensions on through there like that. That'll be my last bolt, and then I'll pull the motor out. At this point, I've got this other engine out, and I'm putting the new water pump in it and new timing belt. I'm also going to replace that thermostat that's in there. Got all the markings lined up here for the belt, critical, and I got a kit with all new pulleys. That pulley and that pulley there, all those are going to be replaced in the new kit. I got a whole box full of new stuff here. New belt. Here's the motor all out. I managed to leave the compressor in, but I actually lifted the motor part of the way out before I actually unbolted it all the way. That's the easiest way to get to it, that I found anyways. As far as the water pump on this thing, this particular bolt right here, manual says that it needs to be Loctited because of oil leakage, some kind of an oil valley or something that goes across. So I went ahead and Loctited both of these two just to make sure. But there's our new water pump in place. Put the pulley back on, and then I'm going to go from there. Put the belt back on. I got the engine back in. It went in relatively easily, surprisingly enough. Now I'm putting the pieces back together. Replaced these hoses here that are down in here because it's just too critical not to replace them. I got this one in. I'm fixing to put the second one in. That's about it. I'm working on putting it all back together piece by piece. New thermostat in here. These seals that were down inside of these two tubes were pretty bad. So it's a good thing I took them out and went ahead and did them, even though I could have left them in. So keep plugging away until I get it put together. The intake manifold is in place. I got the throttle body on here. I'm starting to get all the wiring hooked up. Had to replace some vacuum hose. I got some replacement for this vacuum hose that's in the back here. Pretty much going to put the fuel rail on next. And after I torque down the intake manifold, I haven't torqued it yet. And then I have power steering pump, air conditioner, all that stuff to take care of.
All right, here we go.
All right, everything is on. Ready?
About ready to start it. Fingers crossed.
I think it'll start on the first
Should I step back?
Put the fuel pump up on it.
Fired it up. No engine lights.
Just gotta let the oil clear out of the exhaust.
No fire?
Not yet. Give it a couple minutes.
You the freaking man.
Yeah, watch your step. Miller time.
Awesome, dude.